And we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our. What are we calling this? Do we have a name for the show yet? Is it the Kingo Fandom Association? No.
No,
No,
that is the worst. Kingo Appreciation Club.
Kingo
Plain
Appreciation.
Kingo
simple.
Appreciation Club.
Right.
Yeah.
Where we're going to be talking about Miss Marvel episode 5, Time and Again. But before I get into that, hello, my name is Shiva Mehta. Pronouns are he, him. You can find me on Twitter as @lore_garden. And let me throw it to my amazing co-host, Indrani.
Hey, my name is Indrani. My pronouns are she, they. You can find me on the internet as @Nonagon Dice. Yeah, excited to be here. I have a solid opening for us today, so excited to get into it. But before we do that, Chirag, tell us how you're doing.
Hi, I'm Chirag Ghaznani. On Twitter, you can find me at Chiki Said What. I've got a strong closer for this one as well. For the shortest episode of Miss Marvel. But we got a lot to talk about. Take us back to the man, the myth. Shubham.
I hope to become a myth at some point. What would be my stat block? I would be curious to see that.
We'll work on that.
We'll work on that. Okay, so in Time and Again, we actually go back to Kamala in 1950. I'm trying to remember what exact year she is. 1950. Partition
She starts
era.
in
Yeah.
1942.
Yeah.
We start, and then 1947, I think it ends.
Yeah, but so we go back in time, and essentially we see Kamala's great grandmother Aisha, who is also a jinn, meeting her great grandfather Hassan. They fall in love. They have Hassan, by the way, is a Muslim man living in India who is also trying to fight for the freedom of the nation from the British Raj. They fall in love. They survive through partition and essentially make a plan to move across the country to Pakistan because they don't feel welcome anymore. They also have a child together who is Kamala's grandmother, Sana. And around the same time, Najma re-enters Aisha's life, asking for the bangle so that she can open the Noor dimension. Aisha obviously doesn't want that because she now has a child that she wants to protect. So they continue to run away from her. Najma kills Aisha at the train station. And fortunately, because of whatever magic Aisha works, Kamala is able to come back and save Sana and get her to her father. We then jump back to the present where the Noor dimension has actually opened up and all the other jinn except Najma died. Najma sacrifices herself to close the dimension and also bestows somewhat cosmic powers or Noor dimension powers to her son Kamran. And then at the end of it all, Kamala is now known. Now her mom knows that she is the superhero, and I think. And finally, as if that wasn't all, Kamran meets Bruno because that seems to be the only person he feels safe around, and they are attacked or spied upon by the Defense Damage Control Department, Department of Damage Control. At least I think that's who was probably spying on them, most likely.
It wasn't spying. It goes boom.
No, that's because Kamran did the attack on it, right?
No, we can talk about this.
Yeah, we can talk about this. Okay, so that's the general gist of the episode. If you hadn't watched the episode and I spoiled stuff for you, why are you watching this episode? I'm not sorry. You should be sorry.
Apologize
now. Yes, in the chat. All right. With that, Indrani, do you want to tell us your highlights for the episode?
Yes. I have 2 words for the two of you.
Okay.
And anybody watching.
Okay.
Fawad Khan.
Say that again. I think I lost your audio.
I said Fawad Khan.
Got it. Tell us more about the actual myth and legend Fawad Khan.
Yeah. Okay, so for those who don't know Fawad Khan, an incredible Pakistani actor who became fairly big here in India as well from a Pakistani serial of his becoming very popular amongst the Indian audience, and also by appearing in a lot of Bollywood movies. My first exposure to Fawad Khan was this movie called Kapoor and Sons, which was fun. I recommend that movie. But I will sum up my emotions about seeing Fawad Khan in this show with this one tweet. Shout out to Mohammed Zahir for putting this tweet out. And it says, to be fair, I too would have fallen pregnant if Fawad Khan recited poetry to me. And that's all. That's all. Like, you know what? 100% true. No notes. Loved him.
Yeah.
What a
We
great
thought it was
comeback.
a time skip. It wasn't. It was the next day. That's how powerful the poetry was.
Yeah. The only missed opportunity with the roses and the rose, like, the rose garden, him being like a sort of like a florist, is the fact that they didn't show flowers touching as a representation of them falling in love. I was like, what are you doing? what what a missed opportunity. But loved it.
Mhm.
That was my like number one take. No, I'm kidding. That was not my number one takeaway, but I figured we should open with
Yeah.
this whole situation. No, maybe.
We have a list that everyone submitted. This was her first. This was her number one.
Yeah. We were like, yeah. What does everybody want to talk about? Me, number one, in all caps, Fawad Khan.
Yeah.
So
Marvel's very aware of like getting the actors that they see audiences are going to be excited about. This time it was Fawad Khan. Last time it was Farhan Akhtar. And they're getting all the ones that everyone's getting really excited for, and then only using them for one episode. I'm like, okay, fine.
yeah, there is.
I would like more,
that.
but okay. But it's like they look good. They acted really well. Like him, Fawad Khan, and the woman who played Aisha,
Mewish
Mewat Hayat.
Hayat. Yeah.
Mewish Hayat. I said that wrong 3 times in 3 different ways. They were so cute. Very cute together. Yes. I hope they forgive me. They were very cute. It was a very nice romance. And I was like, okay, this is great. I see that relationship. I could understand, how they got together. And, when you look at that, you should ask more questions about this random woman before you marry her and get a daughter. And then I was like, looking at the face, look at the woman, I was like, yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. I'd fall for her and not ask any questions. I get it. I understand your deal, Rose guy. That's fair. And I feel like we were overestimating, like, how he fought for freedom. Like, he making a proclamation once 5 years earlier, but it doesn't seem like he was a soldier. Maybe he was a soldier once. He has a limp.
I mean,
I don't know
you
if
don't
he
need
was
to
born with
be a soldier to be a freedom fighter.
Yeah,
like
but it's not like, I don't think it was a politician or an activist. Mm.
Yeah. You weren't recording.
No, I was recording.
Oh.
But I made a boo-boo. I was about to sneeze, so I muted myself. So the whole thing I just said has been on mute. Fortunately, it's just the last bit. So those of you who just saw me mindlessly move my mouth around, I hope that was entertaining. I won't really repeat myself. I'll just say that both Hassan's character and the Red Dagger's leader's character, they both seem to be used for a short while, have an implied history, but we don't get to see it, in which case it detracts from the weight that they could have possibly carried.
I agree with that. It often felt like we're very much like we'll establish just enough for you to be like have a vague idea, but never really follow through with it enough for it to like feel impactful or
Yeah.
real.
In
And I thought of his character more as like a community leader and like a community
Yeah.
protector, as opposed to like a soldier type of, like there's multiple
Yeah.
types of like freedom fighters. And
100%. I
yeah,
get that.
and then later in the show, you know, when the conflict like starts to rise and you see the sort of Hindu Muslim tensions rising because of like the British sort of divide and rule thing, which we should talk about in a second. um you see more of that affecting him, right? Like,
Mm.
no one's buying my flowers, no one's selling milk to my wife, like stuff like that. So I thought it was interesting, but I do think these like great actors are being like underused almost
Mm.
in the limited way
They carry their scenes really well. I mean, like
yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
It's just
for
like
what
a little bit more would be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Fawad Khan can act 1,000 words with his cheekbones, but I mean, give him a few more, something to work with.
Like,
all right,
Damn
let's
it.
let's
Yeah.
let's move
let's
on
actually talk
from.
about the whole partition sort of like
Sure.
India. Yeah, go for it, Shama.
Do you want? Okay. Yeah, I would say the opening where it actually explains how the partition came about and what were like some of the larger reasons behind it is very useful, because I don't think it's a bit of history that the world at large knows. I would imagine that people within South Asia, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they know about it. But yeah, I'm not sure about how many people outside of India know about it. So it's good. And it is, and also I would actually want to cross check this. I'm not sure, but the footage I'm pretty sure is archival. I'm wondering if the voiceover is also archival. I don't think it is, but the footage definitely looks, even if it is mildly edited, I think it's possibly. And it's interesting because the issue itself was so complex because it was brewing for so many years, and the divide and rule policy wasn't something that was established in the last 10 years of British rule. They had ruled for 200 years. It was deeply entrenched. You weren't going to be able to undo it in one swift move, but so there's a lot more at play than just that. But it's good that they at least touch upon it, because I hope that after this people will go look up their own research around it and try to learn more about it. Yeah, I'm surprised that they actually did get into it though.
Yeah. And the important thing is to recognize that like a lot of people like angry on like Twitter. You'll notice a few people like, oh well, this is only one point of view. You gotta see the other point of view, and they're pushing a narrative. And like this is specifically one family's experience of partition. This is trauma affected hundreds, thousands, millions of families in various different ways.
Yeah.
And affected the nations in various different ways. And like everyone's gonna have their own kind of story. And like at the end, like Miss Marvel, it speaks to all of us. Miss Marvel is about one family's journey from from India to Pakistan, Karachi to New Jersey, and it's their specific tale. And it's like it can't show every side of the story. That's not the purpose. It is about Kamala's family's journey. So and that's like something you have to recognize the context of.
I also feel like I'm not sure who is giving these quote unquote takes, because I feel like it's actually a very neutral outlook on what happened. It's very much the partition happened, people moved across boundaries, it was violent at times. Those are just facts. It's not even like no one can deny that part.
Yeah, like my family were literally from Sindh, which is Karachi's there, and like they literally have to do the exact opposite journey.
Yeah,
for the most part. So that family would have to do.
Yeah,
for very similar reasons.
It was also like, I think that criticism, I don't entirely like understand why people are saying that, because often India is like freedom struggle started for being like, it was peaceful. It was a peaceful transition of power in the end when the British moved out. But no, like they literally talk about how like an estimate of almost 2 million people died during that period, right? And it touches upon that. Like the characters talk about like they're calling it peaceful. No, people are dying like across our village. I think it's important to know that like the story is still meant, like Kamala's family story is still meant to be hopeful. It's still it's not a documentary of the partition, but it is like Chirag said, right? It is one part, like it's one version of a story that may not necessarily match everyone's experiences, but doesn't make it any less like I don't know,
Um,
It's
impactful
true
or
to that family. It's true to that
Yeah.
emotion that they're feeling.
if
Yeah.
just a quick tangent, and I'll make it brief. If people do want to watch films on the partition, I do recommend watching Manto, which is on Netflix. It's a biopic about the author Manto, who wrote a bunch of short stories and was a Muslim Bengali writer who then moved to Pakistan and witnessed a lot of horrors. And his stories, which are somewhat science fiction and horror, are actually based on things that he witnessed. So I highly recommend that. It also tackles the what's it the partition quite well. And there's one more that I really want to recommend. There's a Gadar, Gadar. Gadar is a pretty good one. There's also, I'm trying to think of if there's any that I can. No, I'd say those two I would say are ones I've seen, so I feel safe recommending them. There are others, but I'm not sure how good they are. So Manto and Gadar. But yeah, okay. Anything else that we want to talk about with divide and rule?
It was really fascinating for me when that came up because that specific term, right? I remember my first exposure to that term was, I think, in like my history books back in school, where we talked about the partition, because like for a part, like it's an extensive part of like the state assigned curriculum that I had to study. So it like just that term, I always associated it with like history exams in school, like a fill in the blank, like
Sure.
the British employed blank
Policy, got it. Yeah.
policy
Yeah.
for like during, and like it was such a sort of like surreal sort of like moment to be like, oh, they're talking about like
Yeah.
the significant part of my history, and that one term, seeing it on screen was like, this isn't like a particular like big note. It's just, it was fascinating to like see it in a new context that way. But I generally was pleased with the way they had, because last episode we talked about how we hope that they find the balance between remaining faithful and truthful to the events of the actual partition and the fantastical MCU version of it for that fits Kamala's story. And I think I personally felt that it walked that line well. What about you two? Did you think that they had
Chirag?
hit the balance?
That's like the thing I was going like that. Just like I was saying, like, I feel like they got the history right. Like the partition, I didn't notice any like major historical inaccuracies or anything like that. But like when I was watching this one, like, and I just see like Najma just come in, just like kills kills Aisha and just like walks off, and then it just feels like this, like there was like a missed opportunity here, which I thought they were using with the Jin, because they were making a whole point of the Jin are exiles from Noor, and their whole thing is they want to go back. And what they learned in this thing, that that place you want to go to, you cannot go back to. They die when they try to. So I thought that there would have been a more of a connection with that. Like, listen, the history that you know, the India that you came from, that doesn't exist post partition. That's a different world. You cannot go back there. And Namja is like someone who will not accept that versus the other ones who would accept that. But he don't play up in that. There's this example where Aisha could say, listen, we need to move on. We can't go back. But there's none of that. They don't really speak about that kind of thing. I feel like there's a real missed opportunity to really tie in the nuance of like what Kamla's learning with with these Jin, with the clandestine. And it feels like without that kind of like, I don't know whether they were scared to do it, tying something fantastical, because we don't know anything about the Noah dimension. We don't know anything why they were exiled. And like without having that kind of like substance, that kind of like gravitas, that kind of reality, the clandestine just don't really fit in her story. Like they hurt her, they killed her great grandmother, but besides that, they don't really have that connection. And I feel like, yeah, the divide and rule, the history seems accurate as far as I can tell, but like it doesn't really feed the villains or the story. It doesn't really like take advantage of that to really tell an interesting story. Like even going back in time, all they do is like close a loop and get a picture. I don't know what Kamala really learns from there. Like even when Kamala goes back there and says, what Kamala goes back there and says, "Why did you kill Aisha? You ruined her life." You did that. Kamala didn't see it happen. she doesn't know that they died, and I don't think she was ever told that. So I'm just like, what was the point of that? In fact, that whole time travel scene just made me more confused about other topics. Like when they said, "Hey, Auntie Ruby, second episode without her, I'm missing her big time. Auntie Ruby said like she killed someone in partition, and there's all these rumors about secret family. I'm like, none of your families ever met her. None of your things ever like. There was no interaction that she wasn't liked by the community. We don't know what she was like in the village. You had time. You could have made this episode longer and show that people thought she was Dodge, or that she hung out with the Red Daggers, which people thought were weird, creepy people, and then people would think that was like a reason. But there was no reason for them to doubt Aisha. It was just needlessly confusing red herrings. And then even back in time, you saw that she never actually Aisha never said, "I'm a jinn," and yet so. Later on, when Sana says, "Oh, my dad said that she was a jinn," I'm like, where did he hear the term? He never learned the term.
I have a slightly even bigger pertinent issue with the time travel bit over here. So Sana has the bangle because Aisha gave it to her. Then Aisha whispers, "What you seek is seeking you." And then when the bangle drops, it disappears in time.
No, it doesn't.
Doesn't it flash?
No. She gives the bangle to Sana. Otherwise,
Sana drops it, and Sana drops the bangle.
Yeah.
And therefore it disappears.
It didn't disappear.
Didn't it disappear? That's how.
No, it
was
just
like stayed there.
Beacon. It stayed there.
So then, did Kamala pick it up? Then did Kamala pick it up? I've never seen Kamala pick it up.
No, Kamala didn't pick it up. Kamala saw her, and she was like putting it back on. Like
so Sana put it back on by herself.
Yeah, there were two bangles in one point in time. Yeah,
okay.
There was this. Yeah, there was no losing it. It was
okay.
It was just a beacon. Yeah.
The way I parsed that whole scene.
Right.
I don't know if anybody here has watched Dark.
Sure.
The Netflix, the German Netflix show.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I highly recommend if you want like a great mindfuck show and like spoilers. So like mute and I'll do this when I'm done talking about Dark.
Okay, sure.
But it very much like reminded me of the way Dark deals with like time loops. Obviously, like it definitely like loophole like I don't fully understand it, and I don't think they fully like fleshed out the like in Endgame they had like a whole like not Endgame, sorry, Infinity War. No, Endgame. Yeah, Endgame. They had like a whole discussion and like back and forth about how does time travel work? You're not actually going into the past; it becomes your present, which affects the future. You're not changing. Like, so knowing existing time travel lore in the MCU, I was like, wait, what are you doing? But I'm just like, new dimension magic. And I what I noticed through the whole thing is that I give this show a lot more leeway personally than I would like other shows.
Well, you did say in the last episode that the show can do no wrong. And you were like, that's a bad take. And wow, did it age like milk.
No, I admitted then that it was a bad take. And I'm admitting it now that like I just feel generally generally more inclined to welcome back.
Should all do it. Yeah, there we go. Come back to the show, guys.
Basically, what you missed was Indrani said, this show can do no wrong last episode and stands by it now.
I recognize my flaws as a human being, and one of my flaws as a human being is just being like, yeah, whatever. I still love this show. But yeah, it was weird. I feel like there's a lot of plot holes, not loopholes.
It's more that it's the magic is again it's not explained well enough, and this goes on to when Najma dies and is able to bestow her powers onto not even her powers because it's not like she can create a new dimension level like stuff. So she just says Kamran's name and then he is blessed, I guess, with like powers from her, and similar to Kamala who has it from a bangle that was otherwise. Again, you see there's just too many pieces that are actually very relevant to understanding how this works that aren't explained, and that's a bit unfortunate because that's the kind of lore building that you need for a show that's introducing a new character. Funny enough, Moon Knight does a good job of this, and I say Moon Knight because it's also got the task of introducing a new character. But Moon Knight does a good job of like, hey, there are Egyptian gods. They have avatars. They can be trapped. They're generally
Yeah, they're very, for all of Moon Knight's flaws, they are very clear on how the powers work. They've got gods and all, but they're like, if you want to heal, you need to be an avatar of one of the gods. If you want to like deal with an argument, you gotta have that. The gods can possess you, and it's like, how do we train the moon? I am a moon god, and it makes sense whenever they're like doing stuff, even when they do weird American god stuff, like making the skies go backward. It makes sense. We understand how it works, but here there's just like, no one is explaining anything. I don't know what the clandestine can do. I don't know how the Red Daggers know that the clandestine exists.
That one still confuses me because that was. I would say
the name clandestines.
I think that's the biggest issue. Is probably that I would actually understand the Red Daggers knowing about the clandestines because I imagine Najma followed Hassan into Pakistan and then created trouble for them over there, and the Red Daggers for some reason exist. But I don't know how the Red Daggers know about Aisha because everyone knows Aisha's dead, so no one would be asking about her. She wouldn't be a legend because she's technically been a nobody the whole time.
Yeah.
Except, hold on. Sorry. Didn't at the start of the thing we see Aisha kill a British one? Like maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, she killed a British guy. Yeah.
Was that like implying that she was like some kind of...
No, she was running away from that place where she found the Kree arm or the blue arm, which was like the British were like the British are coming, run away. They're like they're bombing the place, and it's like you're not supposed to have that. Those are our runes that we are stealing from.
Right.
Like, technically not true at all, but
God,
And she would like give us back what you were running from. You have something valuable.
Yeah.
And so she.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to mark this episode. But here's the thing. Here's what I think is perhaps helping. Or what they're counting on. Two things. One, the final confrontation, which is going to be between the Department of Damage Control and Kamala and Kamran. Yes?
I am I was a little underwhelmed by the way they wrapped up most of the clandestines. They just all die trying to get into the portal.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. And then the sacrifice, suddenly you care about your son. Okay, whatever. But I am low-key glad that the final big bad evil of this series, this mini-series, isn't her own ancestors, but the fucking American government, which I feel like
may become topical very soon. If I may wrap up what I was saying is, so I think that partially the reason they're not too worried about the magic is because you don't need to understand the magic of the new dimension to understand how to stop the Department of Damage Control, because it's going to come down to smashy, run, smashy, and doesn't really require you to stop. But that's the thing, is that so much of the setup, sure, you don't have to contest me on this. I agree. I agree. They should have explained the magic and the new, or how this ties. I would have wanted Kamala to be the one who closes the Noor dimension. That's what, or worked with Najma or any of those things to explain that she better understands her powers. She's still very lost about it. I think this is a fair criticism that all three of us are on the same page about.
Yeah, if they wanted to do that, if they want to make damage control actually be the big bad, then damage control should have had a bigger presence in the other episodes of that. Okay, these guys, the clandestine, run away from damage control and end up in Pakistan. But of course, damage control follows them because they can track down Kamran, they can track down these guys. So not only are you dealing with clandestine fighting in the middle of Karachi, you've got the equivalent of CIA appearing in there, and you got multiple corps.
And I mean, it's not like Pakistan's not used to the CIA wandering around.
Yeah, exactly. Random Americans showing up, or infiltration agents. You could do all that, or even have that rift in the world. Instead of having in Karachi and just ending in episode 5, have that happen in episode 6 in New Jersey, and then have Kamala or the clandestine having to work together and damage control. They're trying to control the damage, and the best way to control the damage is to kill these weird aliens, and they'll bang, and then there's these big fights, and they're you're understanding where they're coming from. Of course.
I 100% agree. I want to quickly clarify before we move past this too quickly. When I say that it's not like Pakistan's not used to having CIA wandering around, I'm talking about CIA interference, not collaboration. I'm not implying stuff about that because I don't know enough about that. All right.
Exactly.
Moving on from
none
that.
of us are working for the CIA.
Or know much about international law to begin with. That said, Agreed with you on that, Chirag. If I may, I would like to pivot us somewhat forcefully to talk about any other theories we might have going forward on what we can expect. If anyone has that, if anyone has any
Well,
theories.
I'll put the straightforward one. I mean, I just feel like they wrapped up the
A lot of the
the most.
theoretical stuff.
Yeah, what's next? Damage control. They have big guns and they're shooting at you. So I don't know what to really theorize about.
Yeah.
But what I do think is gonna happen, and they've been like hinting towards it, like Kamala's mother made her the Hulk costume. She picked up her necklace with the
Z.
symbol on it, which some like a friend of mine on Twitter like used a particular Urdu letter. So I'm not sure of the significance there, but there might be. But I feel like the suit up is gonna happen, right? Like
Sure.
I'm looking forward to that. Like I
Yeah.
feel like mom, who's been super accepting of this whole the light girl situation, is gonna make her final sort of like outfit, and we're gonna
Yeah.
get to see that. That's something I think is like fairly straightforward, and
Yeah.
I'm like excited for.
Mhm.
But
Can we talk about how the group called Damage Controls, their first response is to fire a missile? Like that's not controlling any damage. That's just
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. But theory wise, the dad's gonna find out because that family
I
would
mean-
keep something from the dad. Yeah.
Again, not to call out our American viewers because it's not your fault exactly. But as far as ironic names go, the Patriot Act isn't very patriotic. So the Department of Damage Control not doing a lot of damage control
yeah,
is
I
pretty
think it's
on
very
brand.
much like intentionally named like
Yeah.
that
Yeah,
with people.
no,
Yeah,
it is
so.
quite funny. I get it. So that's fun. No, I guess my point is like, yeah, the dad's gonna find out what's going on.
Oh,
I
Dad's
wanna see
gonna
interact-
faint. He's gonna be like, "You went to Pakistan and you did what?"
He's like, he didn't even get me a souvenir. That is so mean. I love Toffee. Whatever he's going to do, I think they're gonna have like a.
I
he's
think
gonna
that's
be
the other thing is
understanding.
that this episode, last two episodes, have made us realize is we miss the dad. We miss
Yeah.
the Bruno and the dad
Look,
because they're
that's
both
the
such charming characters.
I miss New Jersey. I miss being in New Jersey. That's like the strong point. I don't think they should have. Like, yeah, there was like nice in the partition thing, but I feel like that's season 2 material. I feel like season 1 should have gotten used to Jersey. They should have like figured it out, dealt with these issues going there.
I think what happened. I'll be just to
If they didn't think they were getting a season 2.
possibly that I don't know. But I think what often is that tackling there is whatever the writer wants to talk about. So maybe the writer in this, I'm assuming, I don't know what the writer wanted to talk about, but say the writer wanted to talk about the possible tie-ins with partition and how that has shaped who Kamala is, right?
Sure.
And then there's Marvel, who's like, yeah, but we also need to set up the superhero and tie it in with like, the larger Marvel cinematic world, okay? And that's a lot of threads to be juggling. And I think it takes a fair amount of skill as a writer to be able to juggle so many threads and to deliver on each one of them. And it is very likely that if you are not, and from what I can tell, the writing team so far consists of people who have some experience, but even the head writer has not really led other shows, like full on led other shows. Which means that when you're that person, it's likely that there's a case of too many chefs. So there would have been one person going, okay, so we need to include the Department of Damage Control because they're going to become a recurring issue, and we need to include like a few more scenes from Jersey because we want to establish the part of this world that it's going to be happening in. Sure, you want to include India, or you want to include British Raj, India, and partition. Do that as well, and also make sure you explain all the magic that we need to do. And that kind of leads to a stage where, like you say, you see a lot of stuff that doesn't quite get cooked through. And so you land up with a lot of threads that feel mushy, is the word I'm going to go with. Mushy.
Mushy threads.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I think in the past also a lot of like directors and people who worked on Marvel sort of like shows and movies have talked about how it's a very tightly run ship in the sense that there are certain
Yeah.
beats or things that need to be hit in every movie for it to make sense as a part of the MCU. So I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
And this very much felt like knowing that this character is gonna most likely come back in, say, the Marvels, or like, it very much felt like, let's establish this character and all the different facets of this character, because once she's in a team up with like a bunch of other already established characters, it's gonna be much harder to like tell you about the partition and how that affects her, and tell you her connection with New Jersey, or her connection with her local mosque and like the community. Like, it just felt like, let's give you a glimpse of everything, so you know enough that when this person shows up again, you're like, oh, these beats that like I see what's happening. And it, to me, it feels like a little bit of like that sort of like cinematic universe restrictions that are unfortunate, but yeah,
I think there is like that overhead from above. They're like commanding, because whatever's happening in the finale is almost certainly going to tie to Marvel's the movie or whatever the next cinematic thing is. So it's like it's probably like they had to have something that a lot of specific things happen in the finale, which means they didn't have as much freedom. It feels like last couple episodes, like this is the season we wanted to tell, but we couldn't. We had to do it in 3 episodes or 2 episodes, so that we have to do the finale that Marvel wanted to tell. I don't know. I don't know what the ending's going to be. Who knows what's going to happen?
It would be, we'll see next week, but it would be really disappointing if it turns out the next week episode doesn't deliver on the other setup stuff. Like, it then now really does need to set up something exciting, because if it doesn't even do that, then really all of this has been for naught, which would be very disappointing. Nevertheless, I do want, unless anyone has anything particular, I'll throw it to you guys. I'll throw it to Indrani and then to Chirag, but I'll start first because I don't know, I can't.
go for it.
But I'll say 2 things that I think the show's been doing really well. One, I think it's been doing a really good job of, and this is more a credit to the actors, but also to the setup of the scenes. Emotions are hitting the notes. Okay, whether it's Fawad Khan reciting poetry, or it's Nani getting to see a photo of her with her mom and dad, which straight up brought tears to my eyes, because I don't have that many photos of me as a kid, and my parents have like almost non-existent number of photos of themselves as a kid, because A, cameras weren't that frequent, but B, because that's a big ass luxury from that time, right? So it's that I understand that. So those kind of emotions, Iman Vellani's just knocking it out of the park. Straight out, one of the star discoveries of the show, just absolutely stunning in every scene she is in. Little nuanced emotions everywhere in the background. When she's in the center, she carries the emotion and depth of it all. I would say anyone tells me I need to act in a scene where I'm walking through the crowds of a train station in partition era India, and that's a tough one to deliver on. And I think she did a pretty good job. So just hands down, well done. And the rest of the cast, again, phenomenal cast. And I think that's particularly important to note, because you can always improve on writing as well going forward. You can get more episodes, you can redraft, but it's harder to recast. You can't recast Miss Marvel. And it's great that they were able to find good characters for across the board, because this means that the franchise, or at least these characters, when they come back, we'll be looking forward to seeing them. So just I wanted to point that out, that it's doing a really good job. Indrani, let me throw it to you, then we'll go to Chirag and whatever then.
I think, me personally, I feel like the show could have benefited with more time. 6 episodes where one episode is less than 35 minutes feels like a disservice to the sort of multiple stories they were trying to tell. Like, the whole Nakia becoming a member of the board, I wanted to see a little bit of more of that coming into play. Like, okay, she became a member of the board, cool. She did like one thing where she speaks up after that, and then you don't see the like impact of that as much. Like that thread again of it feels unresolved. Again, there's one more episode to go, and so much that I want them to cover and do and like wrap up and set up. I feel like it could have benefited with more time. But I don't necessarily think that's a fault of the showrunners or writers or anyone else. But the thing that I love about the show is that it genuinely made me care for all the characters. Like, despite everything, I am rooting for Kamran, I'm rooting for Bruno, I'm rooting for Nakia, I'm rooting for like the entire Khan family. I'm obviously rooting for like Kamala and like Ruby auntie. Shout out to Ruby. But just like in the small moment, like in the individual scenes that everybody was in, like all the character building that was done, um, whether it serves the plot or the story in the correct way or not, felt so genuine and well thought out. They felt like such realized, lived in characters that like yeah, I'm really invested in where these characters go, and I love that about the show. I think is that's me. Chirag, what do you think?
Yeah, like I said from the start, that this episode is these series is at its strongest when it's like telling the story about Kamala, her family, all those things, almost like a Disney show, where they're just like exploring everyone's life, living about that, and that's really that's really fun, that's engaging, and like those are the strengths, and that strength comes from its incredible actors who are just having a great time, and this is I think this is the actress of Kamala Khan's first like show. I don't know if she's ever actually been on anything else before, but she does great. I don't know. Marvel's very good at finding unused talent before, like brand new talent, and like really helping them shine. I'm like, I want to see more. I want to see these guys do more. And I feel like, a little sad that we're probably, I don't know if we're going to get like after Marvels, if we're going to get like a season 2 of Miss Marvel, we get to explore more of this world. But anyway, I'm a big fan of it. I think it's a lot of fun. I just, I worry that episode 6, if they try and go into the action, we've kind of seen that the action isn't like the reason we watch Miss Marvel. It's not the reason that we're like, it's not the most exciting thing. Like, yeah, last episode's action was better, but it's not why we watch it. I don't want it to turn to a big battle in the streets in the nighttime again, nighttime fights, and just we had that in Hawkeye, and I want to have like the different thing. I want to like go with the family. I want to see what makes Miss Marvel. Do you think that's going to make Miss Marvel special and stand out, and make us watch this and like, wow, that was a good ending, and I'm like, well, I had a strong start.
Yeah. Now I'm, because you said fight scene, I was like, wow, they could do a Home Alone episode with Bruno trying to stop the damage control department from getting in, and like he's just setting up booby traps everywhere. That would be entertaining. But ladies and gentlemen, that's us for today's episode of the Kingo what?
Appreciation Club.
There
Come
we go.
on.
That's
we are cat. Remember that.
Yeah, we're cack.
Yeah. All right. That's us saying stay cosmic. Over and out.